Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am the host, as always. And I'm excited to be joined by a very special guest, Mr. Devin Jackson, who covers college football for the Philly Inquirer. I hope you are following him on Twitter. He's one of my favorite follows, especially during draft season. Does a fantastic job and was down at the Senior Bowl this past week. So excited to get some of his insight into all of that. Devin, thanks for joining me, man. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm good. Just diving back into some draft tape after the Senior Bowl, checking on some guys that I saw down there in Mobile to kind of revisit their tape, see if I missed something just based on some of the things I saw at practice. But for the most part, just getting prepared for the combine, and then after that, pro days, and in a couple months, we'll be talking about some draft grades. So I'm excited to really be fully immersed in this draft process for sure.
Are you somebody who is kind of doing draft stuff all throughout the year, or is this kind of NFL season ends and now this is head first into draft season for you?
Yeah, so for me, after last cycle, I kind of took a little bit of a break. So I really didn't pick up things till July, but I'm a guy that kind of watches throughout the year. And we'll do some, get about, 50, 75 players in the summer, kind of get
Mhm.
familiar with some of the top guys. And then, as the season unfolds, I'll write guys' names downs. And if they have some impressive performances, I'll, save a name for later. And what I started to do this year is kind of do guys as I go. So, like, Devin Witherspoon's a big name in the draft season. I got his evaluation done by December. And some of the bigger offensive linemen in this draft class, so like Dewan Jones and Paris Johnson and players like that, got them done pretty early. So for me, it's taking some time, in between, the weeks of football and like, in the after like some of their first couple games of the season, kind of wait till like November, December to really ramp things up. But always keeping an eye out throughout the year for sure.
Gotcha. So for those of us who don't get the chance to go to Mobile, go to the Senior Bowl, what is that week like from you, like from your perspective, in terms of evaluating the players and like how they're managing it? What are you kind of looking for just in general from these players who are at the Senior Bowl?
So, kind of the first thing is, kind of get a baseline of what their game is and figure out, what do they do well, most importantly, versus what they don't do well. And like understand both sides of it. So when you go into these weeks, like the Senior Bowl week or even the combine, like you already know what you need to know about, their weaknesses or what they thrive in. So I think kind of Senior Bowl practices are kind of confirming, with some of the things you see, but also like how do they stack days is kind of more important for me. Like a guy can struggle on day one, but on day two and three, he might, take that next step in progression. I think days two and three are kind of the most important because you're getting NFL coaching. Like, how do these guys take coaching? How do they kind of react to different circumstances, being completely foreign circumstance as well?
Mhm.
Being around a lot of players they may not have ever played with or played against. So I think kind of the environment, first of all, but secondly, how do they improve over the course of the week, or where what is do the weaknesses that you saw are they glaring? So it's kind of like a cross check in terms of what you see on their tape versus what you see in person. And how does that match up? Or if it doesn't match up, go back and look at what you may have missed. So I think it's a lot of like cross checking and
Mm.
seeing just how they do, when all the eyes are on them and they're going against the top competition in the country.
Yeah, that's really well said. I think the whole week as a whole is kind of like the big picture that I think a lot of people kind of miss, especially with somebody like Dewan Jones who you mentioned earlier. He does the one day of practice, and it's like, okay, obviously we kind of know that he had a little bit of concussion symptoms and things like that, but would have been great to see him progress throughout the whole week. So we're gonna jump around, hit a few positions, few players that really stood out to you. I do want to get your thoughts on this quarterback group that was down there. The Chargers obviously don't need a quarterback, but they've been potentially linked to a few of the later round quarterbacks, whether it be through interviews or things like that, in terms of potentially drafting like the long term backup for Justin Herbert. What did you see from these guys? I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people saying Jake Haener was kind of the best one, but almost kind of by default because nobody really, really stood out in the best way possible. So, from your perspective, what did you see from the quarterbacks this week or last week, I should say, down in Mobile?
Yeah, I think it was a mixed bag, and I think the mixed reaction kind of makes sense. There were high moments like Jake Haener probably had the best day I think in all the quarterbacks on day 3 where he was just stringing together passes. He just looked comfortable, and was someone that we knew he was a accurate thrower, but very small. Not going to throw much over the middle of the field because he can't see over the line, but when he did have time, he did push the ball down the field and looked accurate. I think Clayton Tune had some big moments throughout practice too. But I think coming in, we knew he was going to be probably the best pure passer in terms of being able to distribute the ball. Playing that Houston system, obviously playing with Tank Dell, who had a big week. So we knew he was going to be kind of that prototypical backup who can make some big throws and not scared to push the ball down the field. And I thought he showed that in practice, but also showed kind of he's not really going to be a quarterback that makes plays off schedule or off script. So
Mm,
everything kind of has to be perfect around him. And I think for a lot of these other guys like Tyson Bagent, I think for him, it was good experience to get the fast paced feel of the game. Obviously, coming from the Division II school, and I thought he had some nice moments in terms of, I think he probably had the best fastball of all the quarterbacks
mm.
down there. Like he could really spin the football. But I think kind of there was a lack of touch on his passes. He wasn't, he didn't really have that changeup, and it just seemed like when he was trying to push the ball down the field, it was always an overthrow. So I think for him, it's going to be a bit of a process for him. It's going to be a bit of a project backup for sure. Maybe spends a year or two on the practice squad to kind of really get some NFL reps there. And then when you look at the other quarterbacks like Jaron Hall, Malik Cunningham, Hall had a big chance this week, I thought, to really showcase his full skill set. Like I think he had probably the best deep ball and touch,
Mm.
of the quarterbacks down there. But I think the inaccuracies thrown over the middle of the field, just getting his eyes in the right spot just weren't there, and just felt like everything was kind of slow, like a second late in terms of just generating the speed power on his arm, trying to find receivers down the field. Everything just seemed kind of a step behind. He just he didn't really get comfortable until later in day 2 and then day 3, and then you saw him start to make some of the throws we got used to seeing from him over the course of the season. But I think he's another guy that's probably going to be, a project backup as well. It's going to take a year or two for him to really develop and really get a full understanding of, what is he going to be good at the NFL level. Because like the touch throws and the deep balls are great, but I just didn't see the progression you want to see over the course of a week for a quarterback that could have been a fringe day 2 pick. I think he's firmly day 3 now. And then Malik Cunningham, it was so hard to because the running ability is there with Cunningham.
Right.
What he can do off script, but just actually throwing the football, he just a struggle throughout the week. He finally let him do that in the game, but then he left the game with the injury after throwing a pick six. So I don't think he really helped himself throughout the course of the week. So, kind of just looking at all these quarterbacks in general, I think, Hayner and Clayton Tune are probably the guys that have a chance to go day 2, early day 3. But other than that, it was, just overall not a cohesive, complete group that they usually see in Mobile.
Yeah, definitely missing. I mean, Hendon Hooker, I think, obviously would have been a huge opportunity for him and without the injury. But and sometimes it is what it is. But I want to get your thoughts also on the tight end group. This is a group that a lot of Charger fans want them to get, the next tight end into the pipeline. Don't really have that true, guy who can be an inline tight end, work the middle of the field, be that safety valve for Justin Herbert at this point. Jared Everett's obviously more of the kind of like a big slot receiver. So Luke Musgrave, Oregon State, obviously kind of the big name that was down there. And I think a lot of people will be familiar with Cameron Latu from Alabama. But What did you see from this tight end group over the course of last week?
Yeah, Payne Durham really emerged on day 2 and day 3 as, not just a guy that, can do kind of the dirty work and kind of the gritty blocking at 6'5", 258, but he can make some contested catches down the field and use his body and size to get open. I think he did a really nice job of that. Especially on day 3 of practice. He was stemming routes at the top of the route, and using, just a little chicken wing, a little push off to create separation because he's not going to be the fastest guy. He's probably going to be a tight end two at the NFL level, but
Mhm.
I think he can be a high level tight end two. Someone like you can count on down in the red zone, and he showed that in the game. He had a nice 16-yard catch from Malik Cunningham where he kind of contorted his body in the air and caught the ball at his highest point, got down to the 1 yard line, and then he had a terrific touchdown catch during Thursday's practice or day 3 of practice from the Senior Bowl, where in between two defenders, he went him and caught the ball and lost his helmet in the process. But I think that's what you want to see, from a tight end. Be able to make those tough catches down the seam, down the red area. So I think he made himself a lot of money this week or that week in Mobile and showcase what he was able to do. When you look at the other tight ends, I think Musgrave had his moments. He had a nice seam route that he won in one-on-ones on day 3 that really showcased his speed. But I think you're really getting a linear vertical guy with Musgrave. I think he's still rounding out his game a little bit. The
Mhm.
blocking really didn't do anything, for me in terms of his evaluation because I saw he struggled with on tape. He wasn't a guy that's going to root someone out, down at the tight end position. So I think he's going to be used mostly in a vertical passing game too. Latu and Braden Willis are, I think, nice safety valves at tight end. But I didn't see, from either guy. They're probably a tight end two, tight end three mold type of guy where it's probably going to be a later on day 3 for both of those guys. And I think really outside of those four guys, I don't think anyone else really stood out a ton. But I think for sure, I think Payne Durham had the best week.
Yeah, that's I think that's definitely someone Chargers fans should be keeping an eye on throughout this whole process. We'll see if they end up targeting one of the top guys in the first 2 rounds, but if they want to go in different directions, I think Payne Durham would be a solid, backup option for them, if you will. So we'll kick out to the wide receiver group next here. Sounds like Jaden Reed was really kind of the biggest winner of the week, according to most people. I'm curious to get your thoughts. We didn't really talk about this with Alex Katzen on our show, but what do you make of Jaden Reed? Is he somebody that you think could go early day two? Is he somebody you think could be, an outside receiver? Is he slot only? I've only watched like one game of his, and it was an impressive game. I think against Wisconsin, if not, I'm not mistaken, was the one that I watched. But what do you make of Jaden Reed's game, wide receiver from Michigan State?
Yeah, he played a lot of slot down in Mobile, so it kind of signals to me at the very least he's probably gonna stick there in NFL level.
Hmm.
And I think the size is kind of the biggest issue. He's not gonna be someone that's going to be able to catch through contact. He's not gonna be someone that um, you know, really I think he's fast enough to create separation from the outside, but I don't think he's going to be able to consistently win, vertically on the outside. I think he's more of a slot guy, in my opinion, but I think he's a really good player. And I think he probably goes early day 3, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, we'll see what testing shows. He might test, really, really well and get pushed up late day 2. But day 3, typically with those slot only guys, I think that's the best area for them to go. But he was really impressive this week. I thought, he and Stanford receiver Michael Wilson were probably the two best national receivers throughout the course of the week.
Okay.
Just being able to consistently create separation. Obviously, Reed did it from the inside and out. Wilson is more of an outside guy, very surprising, just because how limited of tape we have on him. I think he's only played in like 14 games over the last 3 years or something
Yeah.
crazy like that. So uh, Wilson being able to showcase his fluidity, ability to break the cushion of defensive backs, and show his smooth hands. He had a couple drops on day 3 of practice. He should have just had it, but he beat his man by a couple of yards. He had a nice rub against his teammate Caillou Blue Kelly as well down at the red zone. So I thought Wilson put together a really nice week, and then he had a big game as well. He had a nice, I think, 45-yard touchdown pass from Jake Hayner, where the ball was underthrown by about 10 yards, but he
Yeah.
went back, snagged it, and rolled into the end zone. So I thought those two guys stood out on that team. And then obviously Tank Dell on the American team, just dazzling through the first 2 days of practice, unguardable, really tough to defend just in general. And he was the biggest winner for sure on the American team.
um, I'd be lying if I said I'm going to be able to get my hands on any Princeton film. I don't see that in my future. I don't know if you have watched much Princeton football. What did you make of? I don't even know if I want to try saying his name because I don't know how to pronounce it, but I think it's Yoshiva. What did you make of the Princeton wide receiver down there?
Yeah, Andre Ushivas. I thought he
Thank
was
you.
he was up and down, and that was expected. Coming in, he wasn't going to be a perfect player. Coming from the Ivy League, he was clearly the fastest player on the field, and thought he finished the week very strong. He put together some nice reps, especially in the Senior Bowl game where he got overthrown a couple times. One probably should have been for a touchdown. But the speed is very evident for him. I think it's just going to be continuing to round out his game. And I think his hands are really nice as well too. A lot of people are drawing comparisons to Christian Watson. I think their games are a little bit different, and Yoshivas is a better natural catcher too.
Oh wow.
Compared to Watson coming out. So I think with Yoshivas, you're going to get a guy that's probably going to need some time to develop. I think he can immediately be a special teams gunner, or someone on special teams, just using his speed to get him down the field and get him on the roster as he continues to round out his game as a route runner, being able to handle press and working on his releases. But I thought the foundation was there as a guy that you're probably going to take him. I would say probably in round 6 or 7, but you're going to have someone that you can really mold into, maybe a future wide receiver 2 or 3 at the NFL level.
All right. Somebody to keep an eye on for those late dart throws, I guess, according to Devin here. So we'll shift sides of the ball here. I think the Chargers have Morgan Fox, who's a free agent. He was really their only interior pass rusher. Obviously, them running a 3-4 odd front. So I would love to get your thoughts here on maybe some interior pass rushers that maybe the Chargers could be keeping an eye on. I think Carl Brooks was kind of the big name that at least I saw on Twitter. But anybody stand out from you or in your opinion from that group?
Yeah, so I am probably going to butcher this name a little bit, but Adetomiwa Adebawore, I thought
The
he had a
Northwestern
really,
guy,
really
right?
good week. Yep, yep. He really stood out to me on days 2 and 3, as an interior pass rusher. At Northwestern, they kind of used him a little bit all over the front. From three technique to being a four eye, five technique, even an outside rusher. But he really hung well in the interior this week. Debawore was very impressive, very strong hands, and very quick too off the snap of the football. Low light, I think he weighed in at 6'2", 284. So not your typical size for interior rush defensive lineman, but I think he plays really strong for his size, and someone that can hang in the interior both as a pass rusher and as a run defender. So I was really impressed with his week. Then, of course, I would have to mention Keanu Benton from Wisconsin.
Mm.
Um, Massive for his size, but incredibly nimble too. Just being able to work, centers and guards on his pass rush lanes, and being able to plug up run lanes as well. That was very evident on his tape, but he once again reinforced that ability to rush the passer, especially. And then you mentioned Carl Brooks too. Very surprised he didn't get a combine invite. First of all, probably one of the bigger combine
Yeah.
snubs that we've seen. But for him to move at his size at 300 pounds, and being able to win consistently in the interior, I thought that was a really stock up moment for him. Being able to do that, and he was disruptive in the game too. Just wasn't just practice. So I would say those three guys are probably the standouts. Zach Pickens had a good week from South Carolina too, as a name I'll mention too. But in the interior, I would say Adebawore, Benton, and Brooks probably had the biggest weeks.
Benton's somebody that I really like. He's a bit of a more of a nose tackle from Wisconsin. At least that's how they used him from what I saw. But he's somebody that I'm excited about. Last couple groups here, the Chargers probably do need to add some defensive back seven players in this draft, particularly as they've got some uncertainty at linebacker and safety. Anybody in terms of like day three range for you that you would recommend Chargers fans check an eye or keep an eye out for any linebackers and safeties on day three?
Yeah, linebackers, especially. I think there's two guys that on day three I think may still be around and should be of interest. One being Diane Henley from Washington State. He had a really good week, and it was surprising to see how well he looked in coverage. Because you see on the film he's not in a ton of one-on-one situations, mostly as a zone dropper, but you saw the ability to stick with running backs consistently, and be able to stay in their hip pocket, get hands on the football, and then just be able to run and find the football as a true linebacker. So I thought he had a really good week and a really good game too as well. Played throughout the entire week. And then Marte Mapu from Sacramento State, a bit of a tweener, a guy that played kind of the star position, safety, linebacker. Did a little bit of all at Sacramento State. Mostly stuck at linebacker. Got the call up from the NFLPA Bowl, and he played angry. He was one of those guys that gets downhill, will get in your face, not afraid to knock people on their butt. He knocked over Kenny McIntosh, had a big hit on day two of practice. Didn't practice on day three with an injury and didn't play in the game either. But if you're looking for value, especially in round 6 or 7, I think he immediately brings a special teams value in terms of just going and find the football on kickoffs and punts as well. But if you get him on the field, maybe as a sub package guy, mostly as a cover guy, I think you can really get the most of him, and he'll as he continues to add mass to his frame, I think he will continue to get playing time down the road in the NFL too. And then looking at the secondary, it's kind of hard to tell right now who exactly is going to go day three. Because like coming in, I thought maybe like Julius Brents and Darius Rusham, or maybe those fringe day three guys. But I think since they both practiced and played well, kind of rose up a little bit. So I'm gonna go a little bit off the radar here and go with safety from Cal, Daniel Scott. I thought he's a 6-year guy coming out of Cal, so to me that's already probably going to make him a day three. I think he's going to be 24 as a rookie. So an older guy, but someone a little bit versatile as well. He played two high, single high, and as a nickel. Played a little bit all over the secondary for Cal, and he did so during the week too. And he did a really nice job sticking with tight ends, especially slot receivers, being able to get underneath routes. Had a interception, I believe, on day two of practice, and then in the game, he nearly had an interception on Tyson Bagent. So he's a solid tackler in the open field. Not the biggest guy. I think he's like 6 foot 6'1", but if you're looking for kind of a secondary, guy, like a secondary utility guy, I think he kind of reminds me a little bit of Reed Blankenship coming out in
Oh,
terms of like he played a little bit all over the field, can play that single high as well if you need him to. And he's now found a home with the Eagles as a UDFA. So he might not be getting drafted, but I think he's a guy that could stick around for a little while and really do some damage at the NFL level.
yeah, man. Those guys definitely have a role in the NFL, and I think obviously Blankenship. The Chargers have a Lohi Gilman who they drafted in the 6th round. He's been, he can play free, can play slot, can play in the box. So those kind of players have value, and especially if you're bringing that special teams work, I think that's a huge asset for them. So, Devin, can't thank you enough for joining us today, man. It's been a lot of great insight. What do you have working on in the next couple of weeks, and where can Chargers fans find your work if they want to, learn about the draft and all that good stuff that you've been working on?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at reald_Jackson. Working on a couple features right now. One on Sim Richards, who's from the Philly area. Doing a little bit of a profile on him leading up to the combine. And then I'll have a mock draft after the Super Bowl, since the Eagles have decided to play throughout. So I'm holding on to the mock draft as long as I can. But yeah, I'll be dropping a mock draft whenever the dust settles on the Super Bowl, whether they win or lose. It'll be sometime, over the course of the week. But yeah, follow me on Twitter at real_Jackson.
Yeah, how are you feeling about that? Do you think the Eagles are going to come out on top? We have an part Eagles fan, part Chargers fans that we work with as well. So, how are you feeling about this weekend?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I think the Eagles are gonna win, but the confidence level is at like 10%, just
Oh
because
wow.
you just never know what's gonna happen with Mahomes. Like, I think on paper the Eagles are the better team. They should control the line of scrimmage, but Mahomes is the biggest X factor in the game, and you could have everything, planned to a T. You could be up, late in the game, but Mahomes still has that magic. So I'm gonna pick the Eagles win in a 3-point game. But like I said, the confidence level is not super high. Just because you give Andy Reid and the Chiefs 2 weeks to prepare, it's gonna be a rough. I think it's gonna be a rough start for the Eagles to start the game. So.
All right, there we go. I do think the Eagles will come out on top as well for what it's worth. Those they're just so hard to prepare for up front, man. They just got so many dudes, and Robert Quinn has barely played. Ever since they traded for him, and he's potentially coming back this week. So it's just another layer of talent that they have up front. So, Devin, thanks so much, man. And Charge fans definitely cannot encourage you enough to go check his workout. Does fantastic job covering the draft. Really looking forward to seeing what he is able to produce over the next couple months here. So, Devin, thanks so much for joining us. We'll catch up soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Talk to you soon.